This happened a few days ago. I'm Jake, a 35-year-old environmental scientist, and I thought camping in the deep woods would help me think better for my research project. I had camped plenty of times before, but this trip felt different. I set up my tent near an old oak tree, surrounded by tall pines and a gentle creek. It was so peaceful at first. I remember thinking how great it was to be away from everything. The first night, though, changed things. Around midnight, I heard something rustling outside my tent. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon or a squirrel, so I brushed it off. But then the rustling grew closer. I couldn't sleep. It felt like something was circling my tent. The next day, I tried to work. I took samples from the creek and collected data. But I couldn't stop glancing at that oak tree. There were strange symbols carved into the bark, symbols I didn't recognize. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But the feeling of being watched was impossible to shake. That night, I lit my campfire and tried to relax. But darkness settled in quickly, and the woods felt alive. I climbed into my sleeping bag, listening closely. That wasn't good. I kept seeing shadows moving just beyond the tree line. Flickering figures darted from tree to tree. My heart raced. I squinted into the dark. It felt like they were watching me, whispering to each other in voices I couldn't understand. I felt cold, even with the fire. I wanted to shout and demand to know who was there. But my voice caught in my throat. Nobody replied. The shadows just continued to dance around, and I couldn't make sense of what I saw. I thought about leaving, but the idea of stumbling through the dark scared me more than staying put. No one knew I was there. In that terrifying silence, I felt a strange connection with whatever was out there. Part of me wanted to run, but another part wanted to understand. I didn't sleep much that night. The whispers kept circling my thoughts. I felt like I should shout out, but fear kept me quiet. Then, everything shifted. I heard a whisper that asked, "Why are you here?" The voice felt familiar but distant. I turned my head fast, but nobody was there. Only darkness surrounded me. I can't explain it. The sudden stillness left me unsettled. My mind raced with questions. Now, I'm back home, but I can't shake that camping trip from my mind. What were those figures? Were they even real? The symbols on the oak tree nag at me. I can't stop thinking about what happened out there. The woods shouldn't feel that way. What did I tap into? I still don't know. A few days after I returned home, I reached out to a friend, Joan, who was also an environmental scientist. I needed to talk about what happened. I couldn't drown out the memories on my own. Over coffee, I described the symbols on the oak tree, the shadows. Her face grew serious, and that worried me even more. "I've read about those symbols," she said, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "They're from a local legend. People say they mark sacred spaces. Places where the barriers are thin." Her words made my stomach twist. I had stumbled into something beyond my understanding. Joan told me she'd encountered strange things in those woods too. She warned me to stay away and to never go back. But that was easier said than done. Curiosity gnawed at me. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I felt uneasy. The whispers replayed in my mind. "Why are you here?" They begged an answer I didn't have. Finally, I decided I needed to confront this. I had to go back to the woods. I had to understand. The next day, I packed my gear again, including a flashlight and a video camera. I wasn't going to let fear silence me. I wanted evidence. Driving back, the tension in my chest grew. The familiar road wound deeper into the forest as shadows cast themselves over the landscape. It felt heavier this time. When I reached my old campsite, the air felt different. The sunlight barely broke through the leaves, and a damp chill permeated the space. I set up my tent, glancing nervously at the oak tree. The symbols still scarred the bark, looming like a warning. Ignoring the dread building in my gut, I prepared myself to collect more samples, but a thought tugged at me: what if I disturbed something? As night approached, I sat by the creek, reviewing my notes under the dimming light. That was when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned just in time to see a flash of something white darting between the trees. My breath caught. The rustling began again. It didn't sound like wildlife, it was more coordinated. "Show yourself!" I shouted. My voice echoed back, amplifying the silence. Fear washed over me, but I stood firm. I wasn't alone, not anymore. Suddenly, everything went dark. A sharp gust of wind blew through the clearing, snuffing out my campfire and plunging me into total blackness. I stumbled back, disoriented. Heart pounding, I flicked on my flashlight, illuminating nothing but trees. Just darkness. That's when I heard the laughter. Echoing, taunting. My chest tightened. It was all around me, each sound distinct but muffled. I felt hot breath against my neck, and I spun around, but there was nothing there. I aimed my flashlight in every direction, trembling. "Who's there?" I yelled, adrenaline surging. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced with that same whisper from before: "Why are you here?" I froze. My blood ran cold. This was not just a curiosity anymore, something had been waiting for me to return. I took a step back, fully aware that the woods were now alive in ways I couldn't comprehend. A new threat lingered, and I realized I might not be alone after all. I stood there, heart racing, straining to listen. The laughter faded into silence, but the air felt charged, pregnant with something I couldn't name. I had ventured back into the unknown, looking for answers, but now I wasn't sure I wanted any. I decided to retreat to my tent for safety. My flashlight beam bounced off the tree trunks as I stumbled, each crack of a twig making me flinch. I hurried inside and zipped the door shut, my breath coming in quick bursts. Inside, the darkness pressed in around me. I switched on my camera, hoping it would capture any movement. The low hum of the woods drifted through the tent. Once familiar, the sounds now felt like warnings. I pulled out my notebook, my hands shaking. I needed to document everything that had happened. As I wrote, the whispers returned, echoing through the fabric walls. "Why are you here?" My pen stalled mid-sentence. Then, something brushed against the tent. I froze again, listening intently. The rustling was deliberate, rhythmic, as if whatever was out there was circling me. Panic surged. I grabbed the flashlight again, but the beam only illuminated the tent's fabric, the distorted shadows offering no comfort. I called out, "Is someone there?" My voice wobbled. No response. I took a steadying breath, willing myself to sound confident. "I know you're out there. You don't have to hide." The rustling stopped. A low growl emerged from the darkness outside. It was guttural and deep, unlike anything I'd ever heard. My heart raced as I pressed myself against the far side of the tent. The growling stopped and an odd silence enveloped me. And then a scratching began at the bottom corner of the tent. I dared to peek through the small opening. A pale, thin figure hunched there, its face obscured by the shadows, but I could see the gleam of its eyes burning bright. I gasped and stumbled backward, almost tripping over my own gear. "Get out!" I shouted, but my words sounded weak against the shivering fabric. The figure paused, as if considering my command, then it began to slither around the tent, dragging its fingers along the material. "Why are you here?" It echoed, mocking me. I shook my head, fighting rising hysteria. I wanted to run, but where could I go? I had to keep myself calm. I fumbled for my video camera, with trembling hands, and aimed it toward the sound. "I just want to study this place," I managed to say. I mean no harm. The scratching stopped and a shadow loomed at the entrance. I held my breath as the tent twitched, the zipper inching down, revealing a slit of moonlight. I could feel its presence close enough to almost reach out and touch it. Then everything shifted again. The tent wall caved in, and I was face to face with the figure. My breath hitched. The eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. The face came into view. It was gaunt, skin stretched tight like parchment. Its grin was wide, revealing an unnatural set of teeth. I couldn't move. Memories of the symbols and whispers flooded back. Everything Joan warned me about crashed down like a wave. This was no longer just a curiosity. I had crossed some unspoken boundary. Before I could scream, the figure lunged toward me, and darkness swallowed the tent. I felt a rush of air as everything went black once more. There, in the void, the whispers laughed. Why are you here? I don't think I'd ever know the answer. I jolted awake, disoriented. The cold air prickled my skin, and the faint sound of rustling leaves filled my ears. It took me a moment to remember where I was. The tent was intact, but I was alone. Where had that figure gone? Heart pounding, I scrambled to my feet and unzipped the tent. I stepped outside, scanning the darkness for any sign of the creature. The trees loomed tall and menacing, their branches like skeletal fingers stretching toward the sky. The moonlight barely penetrated the canopy, casting eerie shadows. I felt a sense of urgency. I needed to find out what was happening, and I knew I couldn't leave without understanding this place. I glanced at my camera, still rolling in my tent, and decided to grab it. As I turned back, I heard a soft whisper, "You shouldn't have come here." Avoiding a full-blown panic attack, I rushed back to the tent. My hands trembled as I grabbed my gear, but the whisper haunted me. Who was speaking? I turned the camera off, resisting the urge to point it into the dark. I didn't want to catch anything, not after what I had seen. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed close by. I whipped around, catching movement in my peripheral vision. I froze, heart racing again. The shadows seemed alive, shifting and merging. I inched back into the tent, zipping it tight behind me. Taking a shaky breath, I told myself that my instincts were all I had left. I needed to think. I pulled out my notebook again, desperate to keep my thoughts organized. The whispers had said something earlier. What did they mean? And why was I hearing them? I needed context. I scribbled down my experience, trying to piece together what had happened, the figure, the growling, the mocking voice. My fingers were slick with sweat. I kept glancing at the fabric walls, half expecting the figure to materialize again. And then, outside, I heard something new. A soft chanting, rhythmic and repetitive. It spiraled around my tent, in and out of sync like some twisted melody. I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to discern the words. It felt ancient, almost hypnotic. With each repetition, it pulled at the edges of my thoughts. As my mind raced with questions, I caught a glimpse of movement near the tent entrance. My heart jumped into my throat. The figure stood there, more defined now, illuminated by the moonlight. Its skeletal frame appeared less intimidating and more sorrowful, like a ghost caught between two worlds. The chanting grew louder, and I couldn't help myself. I reached for my camera, aiming it toward the figure. As the light hit it, the creature flinched. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice steadier than I felt. The figure's eyes widened, then it turned its head toward the chanting, as if it were acknowledging a world beyond my sight. Its mouth moved, but no words came out. Instead, the whispers grew louder, drowning out everything else. I pressed my hands over my ears, trying to block the commotion. And then, just like that, it stopped. The chanting faded, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. I held my breath, straining to listen for the figure, but it had vanished. I felt a chill sweep through me. Something profound had shifted. I had attracted something beyond my understanding, and I wouldn't be able to ignore it any longer. With trembling hands, I reviewed the footage on my camera, seeking answers I wasn't sure I was ready to find. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting to my left. Before I could react, the world tilted again, and everything went dark. I woke up again. This time, my surroundings were unnervingly quiet. I blinked at the dark, trying to shake off the fog that clouded my mind. The tent felt suffocating. I fumbled for my flashlight and flicked it on, the beam cutting through the shadows. Nothing seemed out of place. The gear was still piled beside me, but the air was thick with tension. I unzipped the tent cautiously, half expecting the figure to be waiting for me. Instead, I was met with the cold breath of the night and the distant sound of rustling leaves. Stepping outside, I aimed my flashlight into the gloom. The trees swallowed the light, leaving more questions than answers. The chanting had stopped, but it echoed faintly in my mind. I scanned the area around the tent, searching for footprints, anything that hinted at who or what had been there. My pulse quickened as the soft sound of movement reached my ears. Then I saw it, a set of small twigs piled haphazardly, several feet from my tent. It looked too arranged to be natural. I knelt down, my heart racing, and fingered the twigs carefully. They were snapping slightly, as if someone or something had just placed them there. Determined to uncover whatever was happening, I reached for my notebook. I started jotting down my findings, trying to remain focused. But my thoughts kept drifting back to the whispers. They were clear as day, echoing warnings. You shouldn't have come here. What did that mean? I looked up, scanning the dark. My senses were on high alert, and the silence felt deafening. Suddenly, a rustle behind me made me jump. I whipped around, flashlight beam flickering as I pointed it toward the sound. There was nothing there, just the trees like silent sentinels. And then, a low growl pierced the stillness. It reverberated in my chest, primal and chilling. I turned, heart racing, and nearly dropped the flashlight. Emerging from behind the trees, I could see a pair of glowing eyes staring straight at me. I froze, blood rushing in my ears. The figure from before? No, this was different. This felt more animalistic. I backpedaled slowly, praying I wouldn't provoke it. The growl deepened, and I was struck with a rush of instinct. I needed to move. Just as I turned to run, a strong wind surged through the clearing, pushing against me. I stumbled back, fighting against the force, my flashlight flickering erratically. The creature stood its ground, eyes locked on me with an intensity that felt almost human. I had a choice, face it or flee into the darkness. My thoughts raced. What was this creature? Was it connected to the figure? I hesitated only a moment before sprinting back to the tent. I fumbled to zip it up as quickly as I could, reckless with fear. Once inside, I gasped for breath. My camera. I had to document whatever was happening before it swallowed me whole. I grabbed it, my hands shaking, and aimed it toward the entrance, ready to catch whatever came next. As I pressed record, the growl transformed into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and swirling. You shouldn't have come, they echoed, imbued with haunting urgency. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement again. This time, there were multiple shadows. They danced like flickering flames, melding and shifting just outside my tent. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. The whispers had returned, and I realized something deeper was unfolding. I had come for answers, but it seemed I was only scratching the surface. Before I could gather my thoughts, another harsh wind slammed against the tent, and the shadows twisted, closing in. I felt a surge of dread. Just then, something slashed through the fabric of my tent with a sharp sound. And that was when I saw it, long, claw-like fingers ripping through, reaching for me. I jumped back, my heart threatening to burst out of my chest. Those slender fingers moved with a purpose, stretching through the tear in the tent like they knew what they were after. I stumbled backward, fumbling for anything I could use as a weapon. My mind raced through my options. I grabbed my flashlight and swung it at the fingers, as if I could scare them away like some intruding beast. The beam struck true, illuminating the twisted, gray skin around the fingers. They recoiled, leaving a dark smudge where they touched the tent. For a moment, they hesitated, as if assessing me. Then they jerked back, and a guttural growl echoed from outside, deeper and more menacing than before. I pressed myself against the fabric of the tent, instinctively trying to become one with its walls. Alone with the shadows, I could feel the cold seep through, chilling me to my core. The whispers intensified, swirling around me like a tempest. "You shouldn't have come here. Leave," they urged, each voice tinged with urgency and desperation. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to drown them out, but they sliced through my resolve. I felt disoriented, as if the very air was trying to suck me into the darkness. Trying to think clearly, I spotted the knife I'd used to slice my food earlier in the corner. My only hope. I edged closer to the entrance, prepared to make a frantic lunge for it. The fingers had retreated, and I knew this was my chance. I couldn't wait for them to reappear. In one swift motion, I ducked below the slashed fabric and lunged for the knife. Just as my fingers closed around the handle, the growl erupted again, this time from directly above me. My blood ran cold. I looked up. A creature loomed at the edge of the trees, tall and menacing, its outline shifting like a mirage. The moonlight glinted off its fur, casting an otherworldly glow around it. It had a skeletal face, nose elongated, and those terrible eyes gleamed with a predatory hunger. The long fingers from before were still creeping, trying to find purchase, like a dark web seeking its prey. Panic surged through me. I had to know what was happening, but a part of me screamed to run. I couldn't face this monster alone. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed to escape. The growl turned into an almost mocking sound. My thoughts raced as I realized this had to be connected to the figure I'd seen earlier. This creature was hunting me for something I didn't understand, and the whispers seemed to know more than I did. Why? I shouted into the night, though I didn't expect an answer. I was met with silence, save for the rustling of leaves and the soft chant in the distance that had started again, pounding like a heartbeat. It was a call to something dark and ancient. I didn't have time to think. I sprinted back toward the tent, adrenaline propelling me. Just as I dove inside, the creature lunged forward, claws missing me by mere inches. I managed to zip up the tent, my breath coming in ragged gasps. With the world outside enveloped in darkness, I crouched, knife in hand, waiting for whatever might come next. But then I heard a voice a little too familiar, echoing my own fears, whispering through the fabric of the tent. "You shouldn't have come here." That was when I realized I wasn't alone. The whisper grew louder, curling around me like smoke. I felt the air thicken, pressing in on me from all sides. Heart racing, I gripped the knife tighter. My mind raced through every possible scenario, but none seemed real enough to prepare me for what was happening. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. I expected silence, but the tension seemed to hum. I could practically taste it, the metallic tang of fear. Then, to my shock, a shape blurred at the edge of the tent. It was quick, darting just beyond my sight. I swung the flashlight toward it, and what I saw sent icy tendrils of dread creeping down my spine. Another shadow, a human figure, watching me from outside. The beam hit it, but the light seemed to warp on its form, as if it was refusing to be fully revealed. "Help me," it rasped, the voice unmistakably desperate. There was an intimacy to the sound that made my skin crawl. It sounded like my own voice, but twisted, broken, a reflection of my own fears. "Get away from me!" I shouted, barely holding on to the edge of sanity. My instinct screamed to flee, but where could I go? The creature outside was still lurking, watching, waiting. I could still hear the distant chant weaving through the air, a dreadful melody that clung to my mind, echoing my own cries. "You must leave this place." The figure pleaded again. "You don't understand. Why won't you show yourself?" I yelled, the panic bubbling over. "What do you want from me?" "I was like you," it replied, the voice cracking under pressure. But I didn't listen. The shadows shifted around it, coiling like dark tendrils reaching for me. I could feel a knot tightening in my gut. What happened to this person? What did they become? Before I could consider my next move, something beat against the tent's side, like an impatient child wanting in. The creature's growl echoed around me, louder and fiercer, vibrating through my bones. I glanced at the flimsy fabric separating me from whatever lurked outside. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of something more, fingers stretching through, coarse and gnarled, creeping closer. I swiped the flashlight back to our shadowy visitor. "What's happening? Remember the stories," it urged, voice strained and wavering. "Remember why you came here." Suddenly, everything shifted. The whispers turned frantic, urging me to uncover a truth I wasn't prepared for. "You must unlock the door, or you will be trapped forever." Then everything went still. The creature's growl faded, leaving only the pounding of my heart. I stared wide-eyed at the figure that looked more like me with every passing moment. My fears, my doubts, my mistakes reflected back at me. The shadows began to retreat, just slightly, deepening the silence that wrapped around my desperate thoughts. I had to make a choice. I had to know what I was dealing with. "What door?" I asked, my voice trembling. "That which binds," it whispered. "The truth is buried within. Find it before it finds you." As I processed its words, the chant in the distance faded. Everything felt heavy, the air thick with dread and something more urgency. Then in the stillness, I heard it again, a low rustle just outside, like breath held in the dark, waiting for my next move. I had to act. Would I unravel the mystery hidden in these woods, or would I succumb to its sinister grasp? I steeled myself. I was done hiding. I lunged for the tent flap, pushing it aside with one swift motion. The cool night air hit my face, filling my lungs with adrenaline. Outside, the moon hung like a pale eye, casting silver light into the underbrush. The shadows danced, and I could still hear that dreadful growl echoing in the distance. I gripped the flashlight tighter. It was my only weapon against the dark. "Show yourself," I shouted, voice steady despite the tremor deep inside. But nothing answered. I stepped further away from the safety of the tent, heart thudding against my ribs. My instincts screamed retreat, but I pressed on. The figure was gone. Maybe it was a trick of the mind, an illusion born from my fear. Then I saw it. A shimmer just beyond the trees, a flash of movement that tugged at the edge of my attention. I crept forward, careful to avoid the twigs that could snap underfoot. The growl had faded, replaced by a strange rustling, as if the forest itself were alive and whispering. "Please," the voice called again, now mingling with the rustle. I froze. Was it coming from the same place? I didn't dare take a step closer, feeling the weight of dread settle over me like a heavy cloak. "Why can't you just show yourself?" My words felt useless, swallowed by the diameter of the towering trees. No answer. Just the rustling and the call again, more insistent, "Help me." I turned my back on the haunting voice, taking a quick breath to bolster my resolve. This was no longer about confronting the truth, it felt like survival. I needed to get out. I hesitated, glancing back once more when I caught a glimpse of something glinting in the moonlight. Something metallic lay on the ground near the tree line. Cautiously, I moved closer, holding the flashlight out ahead. As I stepped into a thin shaft of light, my heart dropped. It was a broken compass, laced with dried blood. What happened here? I whispered to myself. The chant picked up again in the distance, urgent, vibrating through the very roots of the forest. My stomach churned as I recalled the figure's warning, "The truth is buried within." I had to make a decision. The broken compass felt like a warning as much as it was a guide. I took it in my hand, and suddenly the whispers grew louder, swirling around me, pulling me deeper into the woods. I could feel something alive in the dark and awareness lurking just out of reach, watching me. Desperation churned within, pushing me to do something, anything. I remembered the figure's words and stumbled back toward the tent, the flashlight flickering as I sprinted. Behind me, branches snapped like thunder. I knew I wasn't alone. As I fumbled with the tent flap, the whispers crescendoed, filling my ears with chaos. I threw myself inside, heart racing. Just then, the flashlight sputtered and died, plunging me into darkness. I gasped, feeling the shadows pressing in, suffocating, as I realized I wasn't safe anymore. Then everything went black. I jolted upright, gasping for air in the enveloping darkness. My heart raced as I blinked, hoping the light would come back. It didn't. Panic bubbled in my throat. I felt the cold, damp floor of the tent beneath me, a gritty reminder of how fragile my safety was. Stay calm, I whispered to myself, though my voice trembled. I focused on my breathing, trying to steady the rising tide of fear. Then, I heard it. A soft scratching, like something dragging over the canvas. It was outside. The noise intensified, growing closer. I scrabbled in the darkness for my backpack, fingers fumbling to find my spare flashlight. It felt like an eternity until I finally pulled it out. I took a deep breath and flipped the switch. Weak light sputtered to life, casting long shadows inside the tent. I aimed the beam at the tent flap, half expecting to see a face staring back at me, some evil lurking on the other side. It didn't happen. Instead, the scratching stopped. Silence swallowed the night. Why won't you just leave me alone? I shouted. My voice cracked, sounding desperate and small. I didn't know who or what I was talking to, but the shadows outside felt alive. Then came a thudding sound, heavy footsteps barely muffled by the underbrush. My breath caught in my throat. With shaky fingers, I unzipped the tent flap just enough to peek outside. The moonlight bathed everything in an eerie glow, illuminating the trees that loomed like ancient sentinels. Yet, there was no sign of whatever had made the noise. The compass in my hand felt suddenly heavy, a tether to whatever malice haunted these woods. I considered the shimmering light I had seen earlier. Turning on my heel, I slipped out of the tent, gripping the flashlight tightly. Show yourself. My words echoed into the night, and the woods felt still, waiting. I hesitated, torn between the fear that paralyzed me and the urgent need to uncover the truth. With each step deeper into the forest, I felt like I might unravel yet again. The whispers returned, mingling with the hushed rustle of leaves. It was as if something had been awakened. And then, I spotted a figure peeking from behind a tree, too slender, too still. Help me. The voice was soft but sharp, laced with pain. It was the same voice from before, but the urgency now sent a chill down my spine. Who are you? I called. A knot of fear twisted in my gut. I wanted to flee, but I was anchored by curiosity. The figure stepped forward, draped in shadows. You must listen. They are coming. What do you mean? I took a step back, heart pounding. Before they could respond, a loud crash shattered the night. I jumped, turning to find a large dark shape tearing through the underbrush, heading straight for me. It was massive, low to the ground, moving fast. Run! The figure shouted, but the command barely registered as I turned and bolted back toward the tent. My mind raced, I could feel the ground trembling beneath my feet from the force of whatever was chasing me. Just as I reached the tent, I heard the growl, a deep, guttural sound that rattled my bones. I dove in, yanking the flap closed behind me. I fumbled in the darkness for the zipper, hands shaking, realizing I was trapped. Then I heard it heavy breathing, just outside the tent. A pause. Then a snarl. I pressed my back against the canvas, holding my breath. Whoever or whatever was out there wasn't just watching. It was waiting. The sound of heavy breathing filled my ears, each exhale sending a fresh wave of panic down my spine. I could distinctly hear it shifting, scraping against the ground near the tent. I steadied my trembling hand, clutching the flashlight. I had to know what was out there, had to see the monster that haunted me. "Show yourself," I shouted, my voice wobbly but defiant. The grip of fear constricted around my heart like a vice. The growl echoed, closer now, and I couldn't help but back away deeper into the tent. Then, with a sudden lurch, the tent bulged as if something massive had rushed into it, claws scraping against the fabric. I pressed myself into the corner, squeezing my eyes shut, desperate for the tent walls to shield me from whatever nightmare was outside. I heard the sickening sound of tearing fabric as the creature made its presence known. Before I could gather my thoughts, the flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating a glimpse of its grotesque form. It was a monstrous beast with matted fur, elongated limbs, and eyes that burned like molten silver in the darkness. My heart nearly stopped. For a split second, our eyes locked, and I felt an all-consuming dread wash over me, a connection to something primal, sinister. Suddenly, the growl morphed into that haunting whisper I had heard before, now layered with more voices. "Why are you here?" In that moment of terror, something snapped inside me. I had come seeking answers, and instead, I had unearthed an ancient terror. Breathing heavily, I scrambled for the knife that I had dropped earlier, gripping it tightly, willing it to give me the courage to confront whatever had come for me. Just as I found my footing, the beast lunged, ripping through the tent's fabric with a force that sent shreds flying. I yelled and dove to the side as it crashed into the tent, the world spinning in chaos. My flashlight fell, flickering weakly before it went out entirely, dragging me into utter darkness. I could hear it breathing, feel its hot breath on my skin, smelling of decay. I had to escape, I had to run. I pushed myself upright, knife raised, and dashed for the exit. Just before I reached the flap, the beast's claws grazed my leg, leaving a burning trail of pain. I stumbled forward but didn't dare look back. I pushed through the ripped opening and emerged into the night, heart pounding. Light bathed me as the moon shone brightly, but I could hardly breathe. I was outside again, the trees looming like silent witnesses to my flight. My instincts screamed to flee back to my car, to drive away from this infernal place, but a nagging voice deep inside told me I had to confront whatever was behind this malevolence. With fierce determination, I made my way toward the oak tree, those strange symbols carved into the bark. I dropped to my knees, fingers tracing the intricate lines like a lifeline amid the chaos. Somehow, it felt important, connected to everything that had happened. "Please," I murmured, scarcely aware of the words tumbling out of my mouth. "Just give me a sign." The whispers returned, swirling around me in a frenzy, igniting the symbols on the tree. I lost track of reality, all that existed was the pulsating rhythm of my heart and the chaos of the voices. "You shouldn't have come here." They echoed, but mingled in the air was something new, a melodic chant edging closer. I looked up to see the shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, flanking me, yet they didn't seem threatening. Instead, they appeared to weave a web of intention, something that felt both welcoming and fearful in its embrace. Amongst them stood the figure I had seen before, no longer a terrifying specter but a being filled with urgency. "You must learn the truth," it whispered, extending a hand toward me. "I don't understand," I pleaded, tears pooling in my eyes. "What do you want from me?" The creature's gaze softened. "To warn you. You are not the first. Many have fallen victim to what lurks in these woods." As it spoke, the growling shrieked in the distance, gnashing at the very foundation of the forest. An idea, reckless and desperate, ignited within me. "If there are others, help me find them. We can stop this." It nodded, and the shadows began to swirl, revealing a path illuminated by phosphorescent patches that lined the ground like ancient breadcrumbs. Gritting my teeth, I gathered my strength and followed. We moved deeper into the forest, the air thickening around us with each step. The whispers turned into a song, the melody entwining with the chant. I felt pulled toward a central heartbeat, a convergence of energy that rattled my bones and echoed within. Then we reached the center of a large clearing. All around, remnants of past souls decorated the landscape, abandoned gear, remnants of those who came before me. Tearing at my heart was the sorrow that enveloped the air, a palpable agony I could not explain but understood deeply. Standing there, I realized I was not just unraveling a mystery but stepping into its very core. The whispers chanted, "You must unlock the door." "What door?" I shouted, the urgency boiling in my veins. But just as I demanded answers, a howl erupted from the trees. It was the beast, now closing in rapidly. I looked back at the other figures, fear gripping me. With a single, unified motion, they stepped forward, urging me onward. "Trust us." I took a step toward them, knowing the truth was within reach, yet the monster was breathing down my neck. In that moment, the haunting truth and the reality of escape collided. To confront these woods was to confront myself, a cycle of fear, chaos, and unanswered questions swirling around. Hours slipped away in that clearing, but I felt eternity underpin the moment. The cursed woods, the whispers, the darkness, they were alive, all part of something greater. I had come seeking answers, yet now, surrounded by shadows, I realized there might be no definitive resolution, only the choice to fight. With heart pounding, I turned toward the threat, both in awe and defiance, the weight of choice heavy on my chest. "Let us end this together," I shouted, the words echoing into the black mouths of trees, as shadows twisted into a protective embrace. What would happen next was uncertain, but I was no longer running. I would stand against the darkness, no matter what. The answers lay ahead, mixed with uncertainty and terror, but I knew this battle was just beginning. Yet at its core, a single truth rang clear: I was here, and I was ready to face whatever this nightmare had to offer. As the darkness closed in, I stayed poised at the edge, knowing my journey had only just started, though nothing would ever truly be the same.